Welcome to Beyond the Plot. Today we're diving deep into Shutter Island. But this isn't just another twist-ending breakdown. We're going far beyond what happened, into why it happened, how it was told, and what it really means. From cinematography to sound design, from symbolism to subtle performances, this video is a full cinematic autopsy. If you've seen Shutter Island and think you understood it, think again. This film isn't just layered, it's a labyrinth. We'll unravel hidden clues, decode metaphors, challenge fan theories, and critique every frame with a scalpel. Because here, we don't just explain movies. We analyze them, we break them down. And sometimes, we find truths that even the characters never saw coming. Let's enter Shutter Island and lose ourselves in the storm. Let's go. Shutter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese and based on the novel by Dennis Lehane, is set in 1954 and follows U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels as he arrives at Ashcliff Hospital, a remote psychiatric facility located on a secluded island, to investigate the disappearance of a patient. Alongside his new partner, Chuck All, Teddy is tasked with solving a case that on the surface seems like a simple missing person scenario. However, from the moment they arrive, things feel off. The hospital staff are evasive, the patients appear fearful or uncooperative, and the overall atmosphere is cloaked in secrecy. The island itself, cut off from the mainland by a storm, becomes a character in its own right, isolating the protagonist both physically and psychologically. As Teddy navigates through interviews, restricted areas, and increasingly cryptic clues, he begins to suspect that there's more going on beneath the surface, possibly even illegal experiments or a conspiracy involving mind control. At the same time, he battles with traumatic memories from his past, the war, the loss of his wife, and a growing sense that he's being manipulated. The narrative unfolds as a psychological thriller, gradually blurring the line between objective reality and subjective perception. It's a story that relies on layered tension, slow-burning suspense, and a protagonist who becomes less certain of his own identity as the plot progresses. Without spoiling its resolution, Shutter Island is a film that challenges the viewer to question what they're seeing, and whether the truth is ever really accessible in a world where perception can be easily fractured. Shutter Island started as a best-selling novel by Dennis Lehane, published in 2003. The story's psychological tension and layered ambiguity quickly made it a strong candidate for film adaptation. Martin Scorsese, who's long been drawn to characters in emotional and mental crisis, found the project a natural fit for his style. The screenplay, written by Lyda Kalogridis, kept most of the novel's structure intact, but allowed room for visual interpretation. Scorsese didn't just want to tell a mystery. He wanted the audience to feel the unraveling of reality, much like Teddy Daniels does. That meant building an atmosphere where nothing felt entirely stable or trustworthy. Filming took place across several locations in Massachusetts, including the abandoned Medfield State Hospital, which provided a perfect backdrop for the Ashcliff institution. The setting wasn't just eerie, it had a raw, grounded presence that helped support the film's sense of psychological claustrophobia. Visually, Scorsese worked with cinematographer Robert Richardson to shape a style that blends classic noir with surreal elements. Lighting, color tones, and camera movement all serve to reflect the protagonist's inner state. Even the editing, handled by Thelma Schoonmaker, plays a role in subtly disorienting the viewer, jump cuts and pacing choices that blur the line between reality and delusion. Although the film was originally set for a 2009 release, it was delayed to early 2010 due to scheduling concerns. That extra time ended up building more anticipation, and when it was finally released, Shutter Island performed well at the box office, even if critics were split. Some praised it for its ambition and atmosphere, others found it too reliant on its final twist. But either way, it sparked conversation, and over time, its reputation has only grown. At the center of Shutter Island is Leonardo DiCaprio, delivering one of his most emotionally layered performances. As Teddy Daniels, he balances paranoia, grief, and authority with remarkable nuance. You can feel the psychological weight in his expressions, the suppressed rage, the vulnerability just beneath the surface. It's a performance that rewards repeat viewings, as DiCaprio subtly hints at the truth even before the film reveals it. Opposite him, Mark Ruffalo plays Chuck Owl, or rather Dr. Sheehan, with a quiet steadiness. His calm demeanor is a sharp contrast to DiCaprio's intensity, and once the twist unfolds, his earlier behavior takes on a completely different meaning. It's a restrained performance, but one that adds depth on a second watch. Ben Kingsley, as Dr. Cawley, brings a mix of charm and ambiguity. He never overplays the mystery, yet there's always something slightly off about him, which is exactly what the role demands. His composed authority adds tension to every scene he's in. And then there's Max von Sydow as Dr. Nehring, an almost mythic presence. His European accent, cold intellectualism, and calm demeanor add to the surreal unease. He feels like a character pulled from a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Even supporting actors like Patricia Clarkson and Emily Mortimer make strong impressions in limited screen time, enhancing the film's unstable sense of reality. Everyone seems a little too perfect, or a little too off. That's intentional, and it works. Scorsese's casting choices weren't just about star power. He picked actors who could play dualities, characters who exist in two psychological worlds at once. And thanks to their performances, the film never feels like it's just building to a twist. It's about what these characters believe and how they cope with truth and denial. Martin Scorsese doesn't just direct Shutter Island, he disorients you. Every camera movement, every cut, and every composition serves a psychological purpose. This isn't just storytelling, it's mind manipulation. The cinematography by Robert Richardson is rich and unnerving. The color palette shifts subtly throughout the film, from washed-out grays to sickly greens, echoing Teddy's deteriorating mental state. Wide shots of the island create a sense of isolation, while extreme close-ups on DiCaprio's face trap us in his paranoia. One of the most striking choices is how dream sequences blend seamlessly with reality. There are no clear borders. The editing, sharp, disjointed, and sometimes intentionally awkward, keeps us constantly off balance. For example, those moments where the continuity breaks, or a character's gaze lingers too long, they're not mistakes, they're tells. Scorsese wants us to question what we're seeing. The use of slow motion and sudden cuts, especially in flashbacks to Teddy's past, serve as emotional triggers. We're not just watching his trauma, we're experiencing it with him. And as the story progresses, even the edits become more jarring, mirroring his collapse into unreality. Scorsese also plays with traditional noir angles, low shots, heavy shadows, but twists them into something more surreal. It feels like film noir trapped in a psychological nightmare. So much of Shutter Island works because it's been engineered to disorient. The direction isn't just visual, it's emotional. Scorsese turns the camera into a mirror, reflecting Teddy's fractured mind, and maybe our own. If there's one element of Shutter Island that truly creeps under your skin without you even realizing it, it's the sound. Martin Scorsese, along with music supervisor Robbie Robertson, doesn't just use sound as a backdrop. They weaponize it. From the opening frames, we're introduced not with bombastic music, but with a deep, droning unease. There's a palpable tension in the ambient noise. Listen closely. The distant howl of wind, the echoing footsteps in the asylum's hallways, the barely audible muttering of patients in the background. Every single sound feels intentional, and it's all part of the psychological architecture of the film. Unlike many thrillers that rely on a traditional musical score to tell you when to feel afraid, Shutter Island often leans into silence, an oppressive, deafening kind of silence that almost acts as a character on its own. When music is used, it's not original composition, but a curated selection of modern classical and avant-garde pieces that elevate the unease to something almost cosmic. The opening track, Fog Tropes, by Ingram Marshall, sets the tone immediately with its eerie, horn-like wails and layered ambient textures. It's not music that guides your emotions. It's music that disorients. One of the most notable choices is the use of Krzysztof Penderecki's dissonant, anxiety-inducing strings. His work, often associated with horror and surrealism, becomes the perfect soundscape for Teddy's unraveling mind. And let's not forget György Ligeti, whose composition Stanley Kubrick famously used in The Shining. Scorsese borrows from that same tradition, using sound to induce dread, not just support it. There's also a clever auditory sleight of hand happening, subtle shifts in audio mixing, the way Teddy hears voices, the ringing in his ears, the distortions during flashbacks. These aren't just stylistic flourishes, they're symptoms, clues, reflections of his fractured perception. The line between what we hear and what Teddy hears begins to blur, placing us uncomfortably close to his point of view. Even the moments of music that feel traditionally cinematic, like Mahler's Quartet in a Minor or Brian Eno's ambient textures, are used sparingly and often ironically. They offer no emotional clarity, only more ambiguity, more fog. In essence, the sound design in Shutter Island isn't there to comfort or guide you. It's there to trap you, to make you feel exactly what Teddy feels: confused, haunted, and utterly unsure of what's real. And that is terrifying. Shutter Island isn't just a psychological thriller, it's a layered narrative wrapped in metaphor and coded meaning. Let's start with the island itself. More than a setting, it's a reflection of Teddy's fractured psyche. Isolated from the world, storm-ridden, and surrounded by water, it acts as a visual metaphor for the mind in denial. Cut off, chaotic, and hard to navigate. The geography of the island, with its hidden caves and locked wards, mirrors the deep repressed chambers of his subconscious. The storm is more than weather. It's the physical manifestation of Teddy's mental breakdown. Lightning flashes during moments of revelation. Thunder crashes with every step closer to the truth. The hurricane is both literal and internal, designed to disrupt his carefully constructed reality. Then there's the lighthouse. It stands tall and watchful, symbolic of revelation and truth. It's the place where the illusion finally shatters. The fact that Teddy fears going there, that's resistance to truth. Water also plays a huge symbolic role. It's tied to his deepest trauma, the drowning of his children. Throughout the film, water represents denial and memory repression. Watch how he reacts around oceans, bathtubs, or rain. It's not casual. In one haunting moment, he imagines a dry body suddenly soaked in water, and we're reminded how memory distorts to protect the mind. Water is both the literal cause of loss and the figurative flood threatening to break through his mental defenses. There's also fire, another recurring motif. Where water is about repression, fire is about revelation and destruction. Fire appears in dream sequences and hallucinations, often bringing uncomfortable truths with it. The cigarette smoke, the burning apartment, the match in the cave, all connected to his awakening. Even the names are symbolic riddles. Edward Daniels and Andrew Laetis are anagrams. So are Rachel Solando and Dolores Chanel. It's not just wordplay, it's the film telling us that the truth is hiding in plain sight. Like his mind, the narrative is scrambled, and only through careful reordering can you uncover what's real. Lastly, there's the recurring imagery. Mirrors that don't reflect reality. Children that appear and vanish. The ticking of clocks. All of it is designed to make the viewer feel Teddy's confusion. His warped perception is shared with us. In short, Shutter Island is a masterclass in symbolism. It doesn't just tell a story, it encodes it. And the more you watch, the more you uncover. When Shutter Island hit theaters in 2010, the reactions were anything but uniform. Critics were divided. Some praised Scorsese's haunting vision, while others felt the film was too heavy-handed, too twist-dependent. But audiences, they were hooked. Let's start with Rotten Tomatoes. Shutter Island currently holds a score in the 60s from critics, but over 75% from audiences. That gap is telling. Critics saw flaws in the film's pacing, structure, and psychological depth. Some accused it of being style over substance. But for general viewers, it was an unforgettable experience. The atmosphere, the performances, the final twist. It lingered. It haunted them. Roger Ebert, one of the most respected voices in film criticism, gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars, noting that it was entertaining, spooky, and expertly made. He also highlighted DiCaprio's performance, calling it terrific and emotionally raw. Ebert saw what others missed, that beneath the noir shell was a tragic human story. On the flip side, critics from The New Yorker and Variety were less impressed, calling the plot predictable or overcooked. They argued the film relied too heavily on cliches of madness and institutional horror. Some saw the twist coming from a mile away and felt the buildup wasn't worth the payoff. But here's the thing. Predicting the twist doesn't mean you understand it. That's where the nuance lives. Among fans, however, the film gained cult status. Reddit threads, YouTube breakdowns, endless fan theories. Shutter Island became a puzzle box people wanted to solve. Its ambiguity gave it life far beyond the cinema screen. You weren't just watching a movie. You were entering a maze. And over time, even some initial skeptics came around. Critics revisited it and started noticing the craft, the layers, the details. It was reevaluated not just as a thriller, but as a psychological epic, a deep dive into trauma, guilt, and identity. It's the kind of film that matures. The more you think about it, the better it becomes. And that's why, more than a decade later, Shutter Island is still talked about, still debated, still watched. You might expect a film like Shutter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Leonardo DiCaprio, to dominate award season, right? A master director, an all-star cast, stunning cinematography, a gripping psychological narrative. It had all the ingredients of a modern classic. But here's the twist. Shutter Island was almost completely snubbed at the major award shows. It received no Oscar nominations, no Golden Globes, and only a handful of technical nods from smaller film organizations. At first glance, that seems shocking. But let's unpack why that happened. Because it's a fascinating look at how awards sometimes fail to reflect a film's long-term impact. Released in February 2010, Shutter Island came out early in the year, a time when studios typically release films that are less awards-driven. That put it at a disadvantage when competing against year-end releases like The King's Speech or Black Swan, which were still fresh in voters' minds during Oscar season. But timing isn't the only reason. Shutter Island was also genre-bound. Psychological thrillers, especially those with twist endings, are often considered lesser by traditional awards bodies. Even when they're crafted with elegance and depth, like this one, they're seen as popcorn cinema or just mind games. Scorsese himself once joked that if he made Shutter Island in black and white and added subtitles, it would have won Best Picture. That's how arbitrary it can feel. However, the film did receive recognition elsewhere. It was nominated for Best Horror Thriller at the Saturn Awards, and Leonardo DiCaprio won Best Actor at the Italian Golden Globes, Globo d'Oro. The film also picked up nominations from Empire Awards, Golden Trailer Awards, and some international film festivals for its production design and sound editing. But ironically, the real reward for Shutter Island has been its longevity. Over the years, it's become a case study in film schools, frequently dissected in video essays and psychology courses. The lack of awards didn't stop it from becoming culturally significant. And in a way, that's poetic. Just like the film's protagonist, it didn't need outside validation to leave a mark. It knew its value all along. Over a decade since its release, Shutter Island has quietly evolved from a misunderstood thriller to a modern cult classic. It's no longer just that DiCaprio movie with the twist ending. It's now regarded as one of Martin Scorsese's most daring narrative experiments and a landmark in psychological cinema. The legacy of Shutter Island lies in its rewatchability. The film completely transforms once you know the ending. On a second or third viewing, everything, from facial expressions to camera angles, takes on new meaning. It's like watching an entirely different movie layered beneath the surface of the first. That's rare. Most plot twist films lose their power once the surprise is revealed, but Shutter Island gains depth with each viewing. You start noticing subtle clues. The way Chuck hands Teddy a cigarette, the look on the warden's face, the bizarre logic of the island's layout. It all clicks into place, not just as a story, but as an intricate psychological trap. Culturally, Shutter Island has become a meme, a reference point, and a conversation starter. TikToks and YouTube shorts constantly ask, "Did you understand the ending?" It sparks debates about trauma, denial, and perception. It forces audiences to reflect on their own assumptions. Did we want Teddy to be right because we identified with him? Did we ignore the signs because we feared the truth? It also stands out in Scorsese's filmography. Known for crime dramas and moral epics like Goodfellas or The Irishman, Shutter Island is more psychological, intimate, and emotionally haunting. It's proof that Scorsese isn't just a master of violence and pacing, but of internal chaos and emotional repression. In the broader cinematic landscape, it paved the way for more cerebral thrillers to be taken seriously. Films like Gone Girl, Enemy, and even Joker owe a debt to the atmosphere and structure Shutter Island helped popularize. So, while it may have slipped under the awards radar in 2010, Shutter Island has aged like fine wine. It invites interpretation, rewards attention, and stays with you long after the credits roll. The true mark of a film that transcends time. So, was Teddy really insane? Or did he choose to disappear into his delusion? Because the truth was just too painful to live with. Shutter Island doesn't give us easy answers. It leaves us in the storm, in the silence of that final lighthouse shot, with one haunting line echoing. Which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man? That question is the movie. It's not just a thriller, it's a mirror. It reflects how our mind protects itself, how we construct realities, and how far we'll go to avoid pain. Every shot, every sound, every performance in Shutter Island serves that one central idea: the terrifying fragility of our own perception. If this film left you disturbed, confused, or strangely moved, good, that's the point. Because like all great cinema, Shutter Island doesn't just entertain. It haunts, it lingers, it waits. If you enjoyed this deep dive and you love peeling back the layers of film to uncover what's really going on beneath the surface, then you're in the right place. This is Beyond the Plot, where we don't just talk about what happens, we explore why it matters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your theories in the comments. What's your take on Teddy's final choice? Did you spot something I missed? Let's talk. And until next time, stay curious, stay cinematic.